name is I Am. I'm in New Orleans, Louisiana. We're talking about men, women, and power today. I think the first thing that comes to my mind about men, women, and power is the distribution of power, how men might handle power and how women might handle power, and what power means to certain people. Power means something different to, I think, everybody. To me, power means respect, first and foremost. People know that you mean what you say and you say what you mean, and you have the ability to carry out every bit of it. There's two sides to that coin. If you tell somebody you're going to do this and they challenge you, you have to be able to follow through on either side. And that is power. That is serious power. That's why it's dangerous, for some men and women to be in that position. Some people just don't belong in that position. Easily abused. My very first call as a police officer. We had just gotten out of the academy. First night on the job. I'm nervous as I don't know what. You really don't know anything when you come out of the academy because it's completely different from the way everything is on the street. My field training officer explained to me as soon as we got in the car, if the shit hits the fan, you look at me and you do whatever you see me do. I can do that. So we get our first call, and it's a fight at the IHOP, International House of Pancakes. It's a restaurant. A white female and a white male that were causing a disturbance in the restaurant. That was all we knew. Basically, the customers being irate, they don't want to pay for their meal. So we tell them it's time to go. Y'all have to leave. And it's a table of actually 4 people. It's 2 guys and 2 girls. And the 2 male officers in front of me tell the male that it's time to go, and they go to put their hands on him to escort him out. He proceeds to start fighting with them. Officers start tussling on the ground. I get to the back of the guy's feet, and I start trying to hug his feet to keep him restrained. While I'm attempting to restrain his feet from kicking the officers as they're trying to cuff him, his girlfriend decides to stand up over me and start cussing at me and yelling at me, saying, "You're not going to put your hands on him." So much going on. I mean, there was just chaos everywhere. The 2 guys are fighting, the girl's yelling at me, the other girl's crying and yelling, there's waitresses, there's other customers everywhere. I push this guy's feet down, and I stand up, and I yell in her face. I said, "Ma'am, if you don't sit down right now, I'm going to take you to jail and him to jail, and y'all will never see the light of day." So I start, yelling out the police threats, and in that instant, she sat down with this look of fear on her face that was just, I didn't even know I had it in me until I bursted out with it. And to see this woman immediately sit down and shut her mouth, and I'm like, whoa, this ain't never happened before, And I knew I kind of had to look down, and I was like, this uniform has some power to it, It's the first moment I realized as a police officer the power that I had. I did not put my hands on her. All I did was threaten her freedom. And she sat down and shut up. You need such physical strength, but you also need smarts. And there's a lot of situations that females can handle and diffuse much faster than their male counterparts, because females have a tendency to stop and let me hear what you're saying. Let's talk for a minute and let me hear your side. I'm going to come back and hear your side, and let's talk about this rational, if possible. It's not possible in every situation. Taking a little bit more time and just listen a little bit more in a situation, I think, is a quality that a female police officer will take over a male. Politics, especially down here, is such a boys' club, and you have to be a very, very confident and strong female to be able to step in that limelight and take the heat that you have to take. Women are thought of, sometimes in different situations as, having to use their bodies or whatever. And men, when they feel threatened, sometimes they might exploit that. Same thing with females, but I think it's much harder for a woman to break out in that scene and to have to take everything that she has to hear. Men have held such dominant positions and leadership positions for so long that any change in any traditional culture brings resistance from certain groups, and I don't think it's a majority of men, especially not these days. I've seen a lot of strong females starting to emerge, and that's encouraging to see. We had a female governor, Kathleen Blanco, during Katrina. She's a strong figure. I think there was times at Katrina where her weakness showed through, and I think her weakness showing through as a female, and probably the first female governor of Louisiana, it didn't come across well. People exploited those weaknesses, and I think it was exploited a little bit more because she was a female.
Is there a gender dynamic that influences your role as a woman in a leadership position?
It's tough. It's definitely more difficult to deal with now as a business owner and as a corporate sector type of person, rather than being the police where what I say is gonna go, and if it doesn't, we'll make arrangements for it to make it go. Now to have to deal with everything so much more tactfully. There was a engineer that was employed by us about a year, a male of Hispanic culture. I think he resented the fact that I was so young and I was a female, was ultimately the person that signed his paycheck. I'd say, okay, Richard, we're going to have a meeting, and I'd really like for you to be there. It's, I just want everybody to give a brief summary of everything on your project. And he refused to come to the meeting. If I asked him to go to the meeting, he would never go. If a vice president, who is a Caucasian female older than me, she's not so much of an alpha type personality as I. She's much more passive, subservient type personality. And that was the personality that he could deal with. That was the personality he could take instruction from. It's just the way it was. This man could not take instruction from me. So I had to acquiesce and say, okay, if this is who he could take management from a little bit easier than me, it wasn't great for her either. When my father was around, he took direction very clearly from him. Very clear. Sometimes that's just the way you have to deal with certain people until their season has passed. It's not a test to my ego or anything like that. At first it was. I'm bending over backwards to respect him, and he wouldn't even give me a quarter of the same respect that I would give him. I still felt powerful. I don't call out power as a daily virtue that I should feel. Women have always played a powerful role in my family. I was raised in my parents' business. My father had opened up the business, and when my parents got married, he kind of brought my mother into the business and started teaching her. She eventually became the president. He became the vice president. She was the majority owner of the business. He was the minority owner of the business. So it was a serious power couple around the city. They're both very alpha personalities, very dominant personalities, very powerful people. I think that, that was probably part of their demise of their marriage. Two alpha personalities butting heads, and eventually it just, it runs in a point. I love both my parents very much. My mom, she ran the business, and she ran it. And people knew, and they heard her steps when she was coming. I think she might have played even more of the enforcement type role out of the business, and that's something that people might not expect. Their main top skills that they both have in management is something that both trickle down to me, so I can kind of see both sides of where they came from. Super Creole family. I mean, my grandmother is a very dominant figure in the family, and I respect my grandmother. If my grandmother says something, it might as well be coming out of my mama's mouth. The females in my family are very strong, very dominant. I'm not going to say they completely run the household. I think there's always been a nice mix, but there's been many more females in the family because a lot of the males kind of disappear, sometimes, out of the females' lives after these babies have been born. So the females carry the family. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's true of a lot of families down here. There's a lot of strong black females down here because they have to be. Any pressure or challenge on you makes you stronger. Even in my sociology classes, we were talking about it at Dillard University. It's a HBCU, historically black college or university in New Orleans. In our topics in class, we've spoken about the quiet grace of the black woman. She goes about unrecognized. Back in slavery days and after that, when males could vote, and still, what was lower on the totem pole at the time than a black female? Black females did the cooking, the raising of the children. It's ingrained in the culture out here. Females have to be strong, and they might be thought of on the outside by people that might not know as a weaker class of people. On TV, it seems like when they put a black female on a show with predominantly white people like that, she's always got an attitude. She's a stereotypical, black girl that you might see on TV with a bad attitude. Well, you think about everything before that and everything black women have had to endure and the recognition they've never got for everything that they do. And then you might think a little bit more about why there might be a perceived attitude complex. If you dig deeper, you can see the why behind stuff, but a lot of people don't want to see the why behind stuff, which is why I love this project. Because this is exactly, breaking down the barriers, breaking down the walls. Let's talk about it, because people don't know and people want to know. I don't know all the background, but I can imagine how strong those women are. I mean, yeah, the males might be dominant, but it takes strong females to raise those strong males. I can imagine it's probably tough. And once again, unrecognized. And like Naja said on her video, she's saying, they were told to keep to themselves. So, I mean, they might not even ever expect recognition. I mean, I wonder, is that a feeling that Naja might feel? Does she feel unappreciated? Or is it just, this is my role, and I know I'm fulfilling my role to the best of my ability, so I'm happy in that. I wonder. Especially in a role where you're so dominant, that's supposed to be a sign of respect, I believe. I don't know, and I want to know, I don't know. I wonder how she feels about it, though.
Yeah, well, you can ask her.
Naja, how do you feel about the hijab?
hijab?
Yeah, how do you feel about it?